Austin Harleman, however you say his last name, Austin Harleman, whatever. And I know that he's flattered that people are making YouTubes about them and about him and making content about him. I sent him a comment talking about feminicide in Latin America, particularly in Brazil. And he said that that was irrelevant information. Well, that is relevant information. In Brazil, in Latin America, it is customary to say this to a woman: Eu vou conquistar você cada dia. Cada dia. Eu vou conquistar o coração de você. Mas, o dia que nós nos patamos, o dia que nós nos separamos, eu vou matar você, eu vou matar mim mesmo. Okay, that is just an absolute traditional romantic saying in Latin America. You say it in Spanish, you say it in Portuguese, you say it in Italian, you say it in German, you even say it in English, in the English-speaking countries. You say it in French, in the French-speaking countries in Latin America. It's just traditional. It's traditional. And it was once even said in Europe. Once again, Barbara Turkman's A Distant Mirror. She talks about how the invention of the fork and spoon reduced the murder rate, interspousal murder rate, because prior to that, people just dined with knives. And most often, if the wife said something that the husband didn't like and he got really, really angry, he just took the knife out of the roast beef and stabbed it into the wife's heart. So the actual change of eating utensils dropped the murder rate in Europe. And it was more or less like Texas. Everybody was crying out that there was a crime of passion. A crime of passion. I'm going to go back to OJ. In the same time that OJ was killing two people, his ex-wife and Mr. Goldman's son, I forgot his name. In that same interval of time, some guy in Texas had killed his wife and gotten away with it scot-free because he claimed that it was not premeditated and it was a crime of passion. And that was common. But he didn't look like OJ. Okay, so in Latin America, it doesn't matter if you look like OJ or you look like the guy or you look like the guy in Texas that got off on a crime of passion. It doesn't matter in Latin America what complexion you have. You go in, you say it's a crime of passion, and chances are they're going to let you go. And in addition to this, you're only going to get 14 years for it anyway. You know, so if you're doing this when you're early, let's say you're 20 years old, and you're going to notice that these guys that are in the commission of this crime, they're young guys. They're going to be out about time they're 35. Okay, so and plenty of opportunity to start a new life because they committed this crime in Mato Grosso do Sul, but they're just going to go to the Northeast and establish a new life. No one will know them up there. No one will really, none of the locals will really realize what happened. Start a new life. Everything's just fine. That's how it works in Latin America. Works same way in the Philippines. I'm going to say this again. In the Philippines, a guy who owned a security company goes off and has his son and one of his employees kill one of his employees. The guy his son gets arrested for the murder. The accomplice, I don't remember what happens to the accomplice, but the police figure out, this in Cebu City, they figure out that, okay, the father was involved, who owned the company also. He was involved in this crime. And it was over a money dispute or some sort of insult or something. I don't remember. Long time ago. But the father, the son gets incarcerated and is facing his 14 years for murder. The father, being an accomplice and really, the guy that sent the son out on this ill-fated mission, he leaves his wife. The son was about 18 years old. He leaves his wife of 20 or 30 years, leaves her, abandons her in one of the worst slums in the world, TP Padilla. Now, granted, he was a business owner, but that doesn't mean that, and he had employees, but that doesn't mean that he was living high on the hog. He wasn't. But, unbeknownst to the wife, his employees, his son, who was the fall guy, and the whole neighborhood, this guy had another family in Mindanao. And not just in Mindanao, but in the deep, deep bosque silver of Mindanao. So he takes off. Boom, he's gone. They can't catch him. They probably haven't caught him to this very day because he's so deep in there. And it's a common saying in these countries that you kill somebody in Tamaulipas and then you just go to Zacatecas. It's a common saying. Or at worst, you kill someone in Zacatecas and you go to Arizona. That's how, people in Latin America, because it's so big, and there's 1 billion people south of the Rio Grande, really, they more or less think of things that they think that they can get away with things with absolute impunity. So this is what's going on here. Now, there's something that you have to know. There's a technical term that you have to know to watch this. And watch this. He's going to talk about a patrimonial crime. And this is what it says in English. ChatGPT refers to an offense that involved damage, theft of property, assets. Examples include theft, fraud, vandalism, embezzlement. The term is often used in legal context to categorize crimes that affect someone's material possessions or financial interests. Do you have a specific situation in mind? So I ask, mas, que es un crime patrimonial in Brazil, in Portuguese? And so ChatGPT says, and I'll let it speak for itself if I can. I'll let it speak for itself.
No Brasil, crime patrimonial é uma infração penal que afeta o patrimônio, ou seja, os bens e direitos de uma pessoa ou entidade. Exemplos comuns incluem furto, roubo, estelionato e dano. Esses crimes são abordados pelo Código Penal brasileiro e têm como objetivo proteger a propriedade e os interesses financeiros dos indivíduos. Você está procurando informações sobre um tipo específico de crime patrimonial?
Okay. Now we're going to go back to the story. And I'm going to play you a little bit of the story. Watch.
Figueiredo, cadê o Mac? Tá aí? Se ele estiver pronto, pode puxá-lo aqui, porque eu sei, hoje eu e o Mac conversamos pra caramba desse assunto. De verdade mesmo. Naquela curiosidade, né? Você viu lá, Joel, como é que foi? A polícia avançou assim e tal. Foi um trabalho rápido, eficiente. A polícia de Mato Grosso se empenhou pra caramba. Sabe quantas pessoas foram ouvidas? Pode colocar tarja aqui, não tem problema nenhum. Tarja aí rodando as imagens. Sabe quantas pessoas... ex-marido é preso acusado de ser o mandante do crime. Sabe quantas pessoas foram ouvidas pela polícia de Mato Grosso durante esse processo de investigação? Pelo menos 150 pessoas foram ouvidas pelos policiais, pelos agentes. Imagine ouvir 150 pessoas nas cidades em volta ali, nas comunidades, e puxa imagem, puxa aquilo. Tem até um lance...
No. Maybe you didn't understand what he just said. Okay, that's fine. I didn't understand what he said the first time I watched this either. You know, and largely because what he just said is fantastic. He said, "Quantas pessoas for ouvido a polícia?" That's what he said. See, foram ouvidas pelos polícias, pelos agentes. A margem enviou 150 pessoas na cidade envolta nas comunidades e puxa imagem, puxa aquilo. Tem aqui uma lança interessante. Marca. What he said is that the police interviewed or heard from 150 people in this crime, in that community. 150 people. Not only did the ex-husband participate in this crime, but his brother participated in this feminicide also. Now, how does the crime of patrimonial come in? As you come down here, you're going to find out that the two brothers, they go off and they and they are going to take property, cell phone, motorbike, various properties from the victim, and that one of the motorbikes wound up not even like within kilometers of where the victim was slain. The motorbike wound up discarded in a river. That was a clue to the police. And then look at this. Caso por roubado, alguém coisa e mata a mulher. Aí, com 30 facadas, latrocínios, como 30 facadas. Isso tá. Estranho polícia avançou ou ouvir que Now, what they're saying is look, they got things that were removed, and it looked like theft. But the problem of it is that the victim is stabbed 30 times, and she has disfiguring lacerations. Disfiguring lacerations mean that basically what they want is a closed casket. This was a very beautiful woman. They don't want her family to have any good memories of her. I mean, they basically, what these guys are saying is that they butchered her. Okay. The police and everyone else knows that if you're planning on getting in and getting out, and your goal in a crime is to get away with it, that you only are going to use as much force as necessary. That's it. You're only going to use as much force as necessary. It's clear that it probably was not necessary to kill her. So one stab wound shows you that there's a relationship between the thief and the victim if there's no sign of struggle. Okay, so they don't see a sign of struggle in here. Now, so 29 wounds later, and disfiguring lacerations, the alibi that is set up is no longer plausible. So now the police have to go out and interview 150 people to resolve this case. 150 people. And that's what I am trying to say to Austin Harleman and to guys who are trying to be passport pros, is that when you decide that you're going to go to Brazil, you're going to go to Mexico, you're going to go to the Philippines, you're going to go to these various places, you're going to go to Thailand, you cannot erase that one of the primary motivations in relationships in these countries is extreme coercion and violence. I mean, I see it every day. I see it every day. I talk to women every day in Mexico where I mean, they're just absolutely terrified. And they're not terrified of strangers, they're terrified of the ex-husband. I see guys that are in relationships with a woman who might have children by someone else, who was married by someone else, and it's a constant battle and a constant struggle and a constant problem. You know, it's constant, it's frequent. There is, in Latin America, there's a sense of ownership that men have that is just all consuming. It's just all consuming. Now that's behavior on one spectrum. Then there's behavior on the other spectrum where the guy is calm, reserved, and realizes that sometimes he's gonna take an L. You know, and remember, we all take L's. We all take L's. Because the only goal is to meet the one woman. Because whether we like it or not, no matter how much we talk about polygamy and all of that sort of stuff, and we generally, as humans, this branch of humanity, we are monogamous pair bonders. People hate this, people hate that, you know, young guys hate that. You know, I hate the thought of that myself, but it's just plain and simply a fact. I mean, it's very difficult to raise families when you got parents going in and out of the door. You know, you got, 6 kids and 5 fathers. And, and fathers going in and out the door, mothers going in and out the door, people are going to court. And, I mean, the drama between the adults just absolutely consume the children. The drama between the adults consume the children. And in this story, that's exactly what they're talking about. They're saying that these two, the ex-husband and the brother, took the kids like 150 miles away to another place while all of this was going on. I mean, I hope that guys who decide that they want to be passport bros, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. But you've got to understand that it is not all about an American passport. It's not all about going to America. It's not all about American money. It's not all about that, the American and Dutch men tend to be 6 foot tall and 180, 190 pounds and very muscular and are very handsome. It's not about that American men tend to be extremely well mannered and extremely well educated. It's not about that. American men have so many advantages, like European men. European men have so many advantages over other men. It's like right now, Chinese men have extreme advantages. Korean men have extreme advantages. Japanese men have extreme advantages. Now, if you think that it's racial, Russian men do not enjoy those advantages anymore because they are a pariah country. Okay? So that has to awaken your mind when you're thinking of this, that the advantage is some sort of, that it has just a pure racial component. So what I'm saying to you is that you have to understand that feminicide, violence, threats, and the community rallying around the assailant is one of the major reasons why women want to get the hell out of Latin America. And I'm telling you, I see it every day. Now, don't get me wrong. Women are a lot safer in Latin America than they are in the United States. They can walk any place they want to at any time of the day and night without harassment. They can run for president and win. They can open businesses and succeed. You go to a commercial district, and in Latin, women just dominate the whole commercial district. I mean, they're very entrepreneurial. They're brilliant. They can drive. They can vote. They can do many, many, many things. But in their domestic relationships, they constantly have that sword of domestic Damocles hanging over their heads. And if you talk to them, they'll tell you. They have absolute fear of the men that they are in a committed relationship with. And the man, at some point in time in the relationship, says that threat that I said at the first part of the video. And because everyone says it. And I remember I refused to say it, refused to even contemplate it. And my wife actually asked me why. She was like, "Don't you love me like that?" I was like, hold on, wait. Do you have a screw loose here? And I never will forget when she decided that she wanted to get divorced, and she came to me and she said, "Hey, you know what? I want to get divorced." And she was actually trembling. She was trembling in absolute fear. And I was like, hold on, wait. Could you please explain to me why you're trembling? Why you have so much fear? Why you are afraid to express your feelings, what you want to do with your life? I said, could you please explain to me why you have this fear? And it went all the way back. It went all the way back to Brazil. It went all the way back to Brazil. See? And I talked to a Mexican lady. Her husband showed up at a job. He didn't like her employment. So he wouldn't provide her with any support. And he was an American citizen. And to his credit, he did fix his children's papers so that they could work on the American side. He did do that, and they go to school on the American side. But he does not send the family any financial support. You know, his son goes to work at McDonald's and basically is one of the major breadwinners for the family. Okay. So he comes to his ex-wife's job, and he's mad about of where she's employed. And she explains to him, look, I have 4 children which you are not supporting. She says, granted, you have made sure that they have citizenship, and they can work in the United States, and they can reside in Mexico or reside any place in the world. And certainly they're gonna always, they're the crown jewels of my life. And and I love you and I thank you because we brought these wonderful children into the world. She was extremely complimentary towards the man. The man, being upset about the terms of her employment, even though he's not supporting her, he started berating her. She looks very, very native Mexicana. But the husband, the ex-husband, he looks very, very European. So he started using racial language towards her, saying that she was dark-skinned and that she was ignorant and she was in India, and he went the whole 9 yards. That she's just, she's just a Mayan. She's just a Mayan, an Aztec. He went all the way there with her. And so as he's berating her, finally she decides, look, you know what? I've had enough of this. So she calls the guards that work at her place of employment. She calls the guards. The guards grab him, twist him up, and throw him off the property. Now what the guards do not realize, what she does not realize, but that the ex-husband does realize, is that if he had done the same thing in the United States, he would have, in Texas, he would have went to state jail for that. He would have been, duly convicted, terroristic threat, racial intimidation, failure to support his children, because he would have been assessed child support, failure to support his children, on and on and on and on and on. He would have done some time for that. In Mexico, because of the culture, they just kicked him off the premises. You see? That's what I'm telling you. They just kicked him off the premises. The only price that he paid for threatening her, threatening her, non-supporting the children, on and on and on, the only price he paid was slight humiliation. Slight humiliation. I'm going to tell one more Latin American story so you can get the full flavor of this. I'm like cruising around. I'm cruising around, and all of a sudden, it was a bar district, and all of a sudden, I don't drink, but it's a bar district, and all of a sudden, this woman starts yelling, Jose, Jose, es Jose, tú eres un maricón, Jose, tú eres un maricón. And she's crying and she's wailing and she's saying, Jose, Jose, tú eres un maricón. And what had happened is that she follows her husband to a gay bar. And she finds her husband in the tender embrace with a gay guy. Now, she's shocked. And she starts wailing. She's yelling at the top of her lungs, and she's yelling. And she's trying to muster up some community support. No one, and she was a beautiful lady. No one even turned their head. No one cared about his infidelity. Absolutely no one cared. It was not even an issue. The only thing people wanted out of her was to be quiet. Okay, now let's flip the script. I'm riding along on the bike, and all of a sudden I see a car stop. A woman gets pulled out of the car. She gets pulled out of the car. About 6 guys are in the car or something, and they pull her out, and it's on gravel, and they start beating the woman. Just beating her. Now, I'm not necessarily sure exactly what she did, but, they're beating her. But whatever it was, it had something to do with some form of infidelity. I was at a distance and I could hear that much, but it was some form of infidelity. So they felt that they could freely beat this woman for infidelity. But when the woman catches her husband in mid-coitus in the exact same location, exact same area, exact same type of people, she's just plain and simply ignored, and her husband goes home carte blanche. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. But the woman, she was dealt with harshly. And anyone who intervened upon her behalf would have been dealt with also. That's what passport bros have to realize and have to understand. There is a such thing as a Latin lover. There are Latin guys that are extremely romantic, very passionate, great fathers, this, that, and other. They are. But the Spanish legal code, under which they still live under, says that men commit concubinage and women commit adultery. And they are considered to be 2 different classes of crimes, and 2 different burdens of proof, and 2 different types of sentences, and 2 different types of recourse. For example, the woman catches the husband in concubinage. She kills the husband and the husband's lover. she's gonna do time. She can claim passion all she wants to. In Latin America, she's getting some time. The man finds his wife or his lover in the exact same situation, kills the wife, kills the lover. He's regaled in the community. Everyone's patting him on the back. He's considered to be a hero, and the chances of him getting time are minimal. They're minimal. That's what this case is all about. That's what people like Austin Holloman are not telling you. It's not just passports, finance, good looks. It's not just that. And if you don't take these things into consideration and you're not vigilant in telling people what their rights are under international law, you're not vigilant in saying, hey, these are your rights under international law, and if I violate these rights, your dad violates these rights, the president of Brazil violates these rights. And remember, the president of Brazil actively engaged in a plot to assassinate a political figure. Everyone to eliminate a political figure who was a woman. Everyone knows he did it. Everyone knows he did it. You know, Bolsonaro. Everybody knows he did it. It can practically be proven that he did it. But because, and I think her name was Miriam, but because she was a woman, it was pushed to the side. Now, many people say, well, she was a woman of Afro-Brasileiro descent, so that's why it was pushed aside. No, it was pushed aside because she was a woman. It was pushed aside because she was a woman. That was basically the way it was. Bolsonaro came, and I protested against Bolsonaro for this crime that he committed. I was out there in the protest line, you know. My employer was not happy about it. But Bolsonaro, in my mind, had to be exposed. But there were protesters that were pro-Bolsonaro that were actually attempting to say that they didn't say it quite like this, and I was talking to them, but they were basically saying that even if Bolsonaro did it, and he didn't do it, it doesn't matter. That's basically what they were saying. You know, when you kept asking them, what about Miriam? What about Miriam? What about Miriam? Wasn't she a citizen also? Didn't she have her rights also? Why did she have to be killed? They kept ignoring what was obvious. It was obvious. His hands were practically on the murder weapon. It was obvious. They knew it was obvious. And for those who think that it had something to do with some sort of racism, the pro-Bolsonaro people had more people of African descent than the pro-Marian Lula people. Okay. So passport bros, please take all of the factors into consideration. Take all of the factors into consideration. That's why you want to be able to know enough of the language to be able to read what's going on here and hear what these people are saying. I don't believe that human beings live in a unique culture. I think that we all live in Roman culture with Greek culture, with Chinese and Austronesian influences. That's how I would sum up culture. There's just not a significant amount of difference between Homo sapiens that are Homo sapiens. You know, we all have the same ability, we're all basically the same, we're all interchangeable. There are no indispensable human beings. If Einstein hadn't have came along when he came along, we could have waited and there would have been another one. And that's, of course, what Einstein said himself. So that's how humanity works. So what I'm trying to say in this particular rant is that take all of the cultural factors into consideration. All of them. And I'm not talking about uniqueness in culture. I'm talking about local culture. Like, the police should not have to interview 150 people to get to the bottom of this brutal slaying. You should not have to interview 150 people. One of the 150 people, if not all of the 150 people, had knowledge of what was going on, or they wouldn't have been interviewed, and they should have been coming forward on the victim's behalf. They should have been seeking justice on the victim's behalf. How could 150 people in a community be complicit, basically complicit because they refuse to provide information to the authorities in the slaying of this beautiful woman? That's what you got to take into consideration. That's what these Austin Harleman type guys are not telling you.